Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Parker and I am a professional makeup artist. And today we're gonna be doing this beautiful Bridesmaids glam. I think in all of 2025, last year, I did 45 weddings and about 200 different bridesmaids. So I have put in the work, put in the knowledge, and have nailed down the perfect long-lasting look. Now this is definitely a soft glam look. So it's probably in the middle zone of super natural versus full glam. Like we are definitely in the soft glam world. Do a ton of light layers, a ton of tiny little steps that make the biggest difference, but still looks really pretty in person as well as in pictures. So I'm just gonna stop yapping and let's get right into it. I have already done my skincare for the morning and I normally just assess the bridesmaid's skin and see whatever they need. I typically always go in with this Welda Original Skin Food and I will just place this wherever you need additional moisture. So a lot of times that is under the eyes, sometimes it's around the nose or around the mouth, just wherever you see like your foundation or concealer start to break up. You're gonna add this moisturizer there because we can always go in and pack on a ton of powder, but it is hard to add moisture later on. I also never advise wearing any vitamin C or hyaluronic acids under a lot of makeup because a lot of times that will make your makeup pill. And then once skincare is all done, I will do my eyebrows first, and I always take a makeup wipe and just run that over my brows just to make sure I don't pick up any of the skincare into my brows. For brows, I'm using this L'Oreal Brow Lamination. This is my favorite brow product on the market because it's really gonna give a good hold to my brows, but it's not gonna dry down to where I can't move them or adjust them at all later when I fill them in. When I am doing bridal or bridesmaid makeup, I always like to start with the eyes just so I can clean up any fallout and make sure none of that gets on my foundation. So I'll use my concealer. This is the Natasha Denona High Glam Concealer. And just a concealer brush and cancel out any of that redness and creating a clean slate on my eyelids. Before I set that concealer with any powder, I'm gonna use my contour shade. This is the Mary Phillips contour palette in the shade Light, and I'm gonna go in and contour my eyes. So I will start on the outer edges, and you can see my own eyes, I feel like they're a little further apart on my face. So I'll bring a little bit of contour just in this inner socket, right below my brow bone. This is gonna be basically undetectable, but it just makes my eyes look a little bit closer together. If you have eyes that are closer together, I would keep it very light in the inner corner. And I will take this contour, start flicking it out just to start that cat eye shape. Now taking some translucent powder. This is gonna take away any of that tackiness that the cream products created so that any powder eyeshadows on top will go on super smooth. So basically any eye look I build is based off of these two palettes. This is the Makeup by Mario Matte's Neutral palette, and this is the Makeup by Mario Matte's Regular. So you can see the comparison. This one, the regular palette, has much more warm tones in it, while this one has a lot more neutrals to cool tones in it. So it really depends on your own undertones. So if you have more cool undertones, say pinks look really good on you, and you are typically paler or you don't tan well, or you have a lot of redness, the cool undertones will probably look better on you versus if you have more of that warm to yellow undertone, the warm palette will typically look better on you. But before I even start with those palettes, I typically like to go in with a bronzer and just put a wash of color all throughout the crease. So I'll just brush that all over the crease, pretty much where we put down that contour shade, and then flicking it up. So for myself, I am a more neutral undertone, so I could go warm or cool, but I'm gonna use the neutral to cool palette. And starting, I'm just gonna use this like mid-tone brown right here. And this is on a slightly smaller natural hair brush. So I'm really just tickling the lash line and then bringing it up into my crease. I do this method a lot more than the traditional like C shape. I like to really focus that darkness along the lash line. And then bringing it up and then taking whatever is left over on the brush and flicking that outwards to again keep creating that cat eye shape. this will just take a couple different layers. So I'm going back in with my second layer here. And this is also personal preference. So as dark as you want to get it, you just want to keep adding the layers as you go. And I always like to have my big fluffy brush handy to just blend over any of that. Tap into this bone shade, just this like skin tone shade, and brush that along my brow bone and on the very tip of where I'm blending. That is gonna add such a difference to your eyeshadow look and just make it look so blended and seamless. So this is my third layer of that same mid-toned brown. Now I'm gonna go one shade darker with this medium to darker brown right here, and I'm using this on a flat fluffy brush and just dipping it in there and then really pressing this into my lash line and blending up as needed. I don't want to go further than halfway across my lid, really keeping this on the outer half and then flicking it up, just creating the shadow of a winged liner. Go back in with my other fluffy brush that had the mid-tone brown on it and just blend. So the liner I'm going to use is this Makeup Forever Dimensional Dark Brown. And I am going to just pack that really close to the lash line again, focusing it on the outer corner and just laying that product down. So I'm holding this sideways and then just making little dashes. Keep my eyes open and look straight at a mirror, and then slowly start to flick up in the outer corner. The direction I'm focusing on is what direction is my lower lash line going in, starting at the very edge and then flicking in that same direction. And then just filling in the gap. Then connecting from that outer line towards the inner line. And then I like to take a really small pencil brush and just start smudging that out. So I will just kind of blend as needed. Again, I'm gonna clean it up with the makeup wipe, so it's gonna be a really crisp line at the end. Then going back in with my flat brush and just blending that even more. I can even dip back into that little bit of a darker brown and just go over where that wing is. And then I like to add my darkest brown. So this one right here, I don't typically use black unless someone is more on the full glam side. And I'm gonna press this right over where we put the liner to set it and then deepen it up a little bit. And I'll even bring this a little bit further in. Now this is where I'll go in with a makeup wipe and just on my finger and clean up the edge. And really once I put a lot of foundation and everything out there, it's gonna blend much easier. On a clean fluffy brush, I'm gonna take this white and the bone shade and just mix these together, and I'm gonna add this to the inner corner just to lighten things up a little bit. You can also add a white liner underneath if you really like a bright inner corner, but I'm good with this level. And then I will use my Dior Backstage palette. Just kind of mix those all together so I get like a pretty neutral shimmery shade. If you like things to be a little more pink, just mix the white and the pink. If you like things to be a little more gold, just use the gold. And I am gonna focus all of that shimmery shade right down the center of my lid. I really want this to line up with the center of my lid and then kind of bring it up onto my brow bone. But just keeping that symmetrical is very attractive to the eye. Just promotes symmetry within your face. I'm gonna add a little bit more on a brush, and then I'm gonna take a smaller brush and just hit that inner corner. Kind of took away a little bit of the darkness that was close to my lash line, so I'll just go back in with my small smudging brush and just add some. And you could obviously add more glitter, more shimmer, or you could go with the totally matte eye. But I find this Backstage palette just to be the right amount of shimmer without being overwhelming. Top eyeshadow is completely done. Now let's talk lashes. So in 2025, my favorite lashes to use, especially on Bridesmaids, were the Ardell 421s. These ones right here. But I also loved the Ardell 420s. And you can see the 420s are just a little bit shorter, a little bit more natural than the 421s. And I am predicting myself to use the 420s a lot more in 2026. These will add a lot more volume versus length, which I think is a lot more flattering because it's a lot more natural. And do not underestimate the impact of just adding volume versus like crazy lash length. We do not want your lashes touching your eyebrows. That is like my #1 rule. In general, I'd never take off an entire strip lash and put the entire strip lash on my eye. That is just not my vibe. But I love to do a half lash, and a lot of times I will go in and add individuals where needed, so throughout the inner corner. But taking one, cutting them in half, and you can use one of the halves for one eye and the other half for the other eye because they are equal throughout. So that is what the 421 looks like. Still gorgeous. Still, you can see it's not even close to touching my eyebrow, but it's definitely a lash, you know? Okay, this is the 420. And obviously these are not actually attached with any glue or anything, so it's kind of hard to see, but these are just a little bit shorter and they look like my natural lashes. Like the length of my natural lashes is about here. It's just gonna have a lot more volume in that outer corner and kind of deepen up the liner and all that good stuff. So I'm gonna go with the 420s. I'm using the Duo Lash Glue in clear. Because I don't have a super dark eyeliner on, I like to use the clear versus the black. And I'm adding such a small little layer. Sometimes I will even take my nail and take off a little bit of the glue. And then I will just put it down and let it dry a little bit. When I first started doing lashes, I used to set a timer for like 45 seconds to a minute just to ensure that the lashes were fully tacky before I even tried messing with them. And I love to use a pair of tweezers. So I will just grip the lashes, like the lash curve is facing towards me. And then when I'm gonna set this on my eye, I don't wanna put it all the way to the very corner of my lid. So one side, just set it there. And then you can even take your hand and make sure it is pressed down everywhere. Okay, moving on to face. You can see it's actually very hot in my room, so I'm sweating a little bit, but I definitely have a lot of hydration in my skin, but that's gonna be okay because we're gonna powder it all up. And to get the most natural looking skin finish, I'm gonna do a little bit of underpainting. So I'm using the Mary Phillips contour palette in the shade Light. And I love the brush. It doesn't come with it, but you have to buy separately. So I first will take that contour shade on this brush and focus that right on my cheekbone. So I really start in the center of my cheeks. I'm not bringing it all the way back here. It's okay if you have some harsh lines because this is underpainting. The foundation is really gonna blend it all out. My contour is, you know, top of the ear to the edge of the mouth. That is where I'm focused. And I will blend it up onto the cheek, never dragging it down. For my forehead, I'll mix that cooler toned with the warmer toned. And I really like to blend this into my hairline. And because I have a pretty round face shape, I like to keep most of this contour on the outer edges so that it is creating that like elongated shape. If you have a very elongated shape, you really want to bring it onto the top of your forehead and to your chin so that it creates a more rounded shape. It's all about creating that sense of like symmetry. Then I will take a little along my jawline. Again, because I have a circular face, I'm not going to bring any on my chin. Just focusing this on the outer parts. And then I will put it right in front of my ear as well. Flip the brush over to the other side and add a little lip contour. Just top and bottom. And if you have a wider nose, you want to make your nose look smaller, I would take it down the sides of your nose. I have a pretty small nose, so I just kind of put it all over. Next, I like to go in with my concealer. For that, I'm going to use the Kosas Magic Concealer. This is like a pink toned. And I will just add a dot under my eyes. This is really going to help brighten. And then I will go in with the Natasha Denona High Glam. This is in the shade N2. And just adding a little bit where I have redness, anywhere I want to brighten. I always add a little around my mouth. And then a little under that contour as well, just to make it a little more dramatic because again, the foundation is going to blend everything out. Using this House Labs brush, just patting. Anywhere that you have blemishes, just take some concealer, put it on the blemish, and then let it dry down. The more you let it dry, the more coverage you'll get. If you feel like you have too much concealer, which I do feel like I put too much on my forehead, I will just pick a little bit up on a brush and then wipe it off on a towel. See, we have all the harsh lines now. Now just taking my sponge and blending as needed. For foundation, I'm going to use the e.l.f. Halo Glow. This is in the shade 3.5 mixed with Armani Luminous Silk in 3.75. The Armani is a little bit pale for me, and then the Halo Glow is a little tan for me right now. Like about like that. And I'm going to mix them together. The Halo Glow has a little bit of a sheen to it. The Armani just has a natural finish to it, so they are just beautiful together to get really healthy, hydrating looking skin that is going to complement pretty much any skin type. Now this is my trick to really blending everything out, is using a beauty blender, and I just take it either on the back of your hand or on a palette like this, and I just pick up a little bit with the beauty blender, and then I just go directly over all of that contour, concealer, everything we just put down. And this is a really light layer, so the contour is gonna shine through. Definitely take that over the ears, down the neck. Totally optional step, but I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more bronzer. This is the Mario Skin Enhancer in light medium, and just tap that over my cheeks. Make it look like I got some sun. So the underpainting does a lot of the contour work, really chiseling, sculpting underneath, and this is just more of adding color back. For blush, because I have a more neutral to cool undertone, I am sticking with the cool undertone blush. So for that, I'm gonna use She's Seductive by Patrick Ta. I am like at pan on this, and then I'm gonna top it with She Goes to the Gym. Also a beautiful cool toned pink. You can see those two. However, if you have warm undertones, I love the combination of using She's Blushing. So here's She's Blushing, which you can see compared to She Goes to the Gym, like much more warm tone, more on the orangey side, versus She Goes to the Gym is more on the cool toned pink side. So I love She's Blushing, and a lot of times I'll add like She's That Girl on top, which is a just even peachier look. Those are beautiful if you are in the warm tones. She's Seductive is very neutral though, and can flatter a lot of different skin types. So no matter the undertone, I typically will start with this one and kind of blow this all over the face. So that's, you know, all over the cheek, up to the temples, across the nose. This is like my base blush. So I'll even take it onto the temples, and then I'll go in with She Goes to the Gym. I'm gonna focus this on the high points of my cheeks, so you can see like what that adds. Go back in with my sponge, make sure all of that is blended. And now this is where we do powder, and everything starts to look normal again. I'm using this powder that I created, is actually using an RCMA No Color powder and the Ben Nye Pink powder. Use whatever powder you have. This is just one that I love, super affordable, and I'll link it down below. So to set my powder, I first like to go in with a fluffy brush and kind of just transition my face from being super wet and creamy to drier. I'll do this before I start baking. So blend out any of those lines, take a little bit of powder and just start tapping it. I don't like to swipe, I don't want to move anything. And I really focus this mainly on my T-zone. I don't mind being a little bit oily throughout the day. And then I will go in with the powder puff, tap off any excess, put it on the sides of my nose, and just press that into the skin. Right on my chin and in the T-zone. And then I'll do a little bit underneath the contour. And I pretty much blend it out immediately because I don't want it to set into any crazy harsh lines. Okay, now this is where I go in with any powder products. I know this is a 1,000,001 steps, but I'm just showing you as a makeup artist, this is what I'm doing on my bridesmaids, and all these little layers are really what's gonna give you the longevity. As soon as a powder layer wears off, you know you have the cream underneath. As soon as your foundation wears off, you have that underpainting underneath. This is really what's gonna give you that 12 to 16 hour makeup. So I'm just using my butter bronzer just to add a little bit of warmth back into my face. To add a little blush topper, I'm gonna use Hourglass Sublime Blush, but I also love Milani's Luminoso. I have loved that one for years. Just take this on a fluffy brush and I will just put this all over my cheeks. For a highlight, I'm using a little bit of the Backstage palette, mixing the 3 we used earlier, little on the nose, little on the high points. For brows, I'm using the NYX Micro Brow in Ash Brown. And this is why I love that L'Oreal brow lamination so much, because I can go in and add little hairs where needed, and then I can use my spoolie and brush through my brows. Some other brow products really dry down where you are not moving a single brow hair. Okay, and maybe this is so 2023, 2024, whatever. I'm still gonna add a tiny bit of freckles using my brow pencil to my nose. I just think this makes the foundation look so much more natural, as if your skin is coming through. I just think freckles are so cute, and I would just focus that right on the bridge of my nose and pretty much nowhere else. I have this tiny like red dot right here, so I will add a little bit there. And then you can of course add it over any blemishes. Moving back to the eyes, I'm gonna add a nude waterline. I always recommend doing nude over white. White is just really harsh. Just adding a little bronzer under there. I'm gonna take that mid-tone brown we first used on the upper lid, and I'm gonna put this as close to the lash line as possible underneath my eyes. This is just gonna help create some shape around my eyes. Because I'm adding bottom mascara, I really like this look. Adding some mascara using Maybelline Lash Sensational, my favorite mascara ever. Focusing most of this close to the lash line, but then on my regular lashes in the inner corner, since we don't have anything there, I'll really pack it on. This is where you see the lashes come together. And I like to add some bottom mascara. I always say if you don't normally wear bottom mascara, skip it, because it's not gonna feel like yourself. And I like the look of skipping it as well, but I do normally wear it, so here we are. I use these 2 lip liners on 90% of my clients, and that is Charlotte Tilbury's Love Trap or Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk Medium. And these are both neutrals, just keep that in mind. But if you have a little bit fairer lips or you are on the warmer undertones, typically Pillow Talk Medium looks really good on you. And then if you are on the cooler undertones or you have a little bit more pigment to your lips, Love Trap looks really good. I love Love Trap on myself, so that's what we're gonna use today. And I always do a little bit of overlining. So just top and bottom. And then take it exactly to your lip line in the corners. Blend it out with your finger. And honestly, on myself, most of the time I just do a liner and some gloss. So that's what we're gonna do. Glosses that I love are the Maybelline Lifter glosses. This is in Gummy Bear. Just put it in the center. Okay, let's set the face. I like to set the face first using something that's gonna bring the life back to my face. This is the Milani Make It Last, but Charlotte Tilbury has a good one, Max Fix Plus. And then you can go back in with your powder once this kind of dries down and just touch back over really where my pores shine through. So right here and on my chin and on my forehead. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm gonna lock it all in with this L'Oreal Infallible. Also, it's like the same thing as the One Size. Woo! Tastes so bad. Okay, there we go. That is the finished look. This makeup would really last you all night long. Like I'm talking 12 to 16 hours to sleep like this. You'll wake up, your glam still looks so good. And it still looks really pretty in person as well as in pictures on the dance floor. I did this on hundreds of bridesmaids last year and they all loved it. So I hope you guys love it as well. And if you did, please give me a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Bye.